Hello viewers, welcome back to the next tutorial. In the previous video, we had a look at how to create a basic application and displaying a hello world text on a visible screen. And we had a look at index.js file. And now today we're gonna just have a look at the classes what we declared here for to display the text hello world and more detailed information on this particular classes. So we can see, I think we already had a look at imports in the previous video. So if anybody missed the previous video, just had a look at the previous video. I am mentioning the link in the description. Just go through the previous video so that you can have a flow for the further videos. So here we can see export and default, two keywords are mentioned in front of the class declaration. So what is the use of this one? So generally index file is the one that going to execute automatically inside of in a folder that we as a fundamental. So here we have mentioned app.js is the thing that has to be visible. So when system comes to here, there should be something to mention particular thing has to be executed automatically. So to specify that one, we should mention export and default. For example, let me remove this one and then see. If you see, there is an error saying you likely forgot to export your component from the file it's defined in. It means like system is executed the app.js, but somehow it missed like what file has to be executed or what class has to be executed. So to make it understand for the system, which has to be executed in the file. So because in a single file we can able to create a multiple classes and multiple functions. So let's say maybe let me create a one more file with the name app1. So we have a two classes in the same file, but system could not be able to identify which class has to be executed. So that is where we should mention export. Basically default is the keyword that executes the particular class automatically. So we could not able to mention only a default keyword in front of a class or function. So that is where we should mention export and default. So then why the specific need of the export? Export is the keyword that allows you to access the class to the somewhere else, any other files or some other classes. So let's look at the need of the export keyword as well. So I just added export and default, so you can see this thing is executed fine. So if I wanted to access this particular app1 class to here, simply I can able to app1 close slash. That's it. It's a very simple one because this is in the same class. And let me remove this flex so that let me remove the styles as well, because basically styles will applicable based on the parent one. So I already have my parent one is flex one and it's a justify content hello world. So let me save and see two hello worlds. Let me change some text hello world from app1. Oops. Yeah. So that's it, a simple way of accessing or calling another class into the design, which is like the viewable component. So now because this one is in the same file, so that I can able to simply make a use of the class object here, so that the thing will be executed and content will be get visible on the screen. For example, if some of the visible component is in the another class, let's say I have a launch which we created for the yesterday's purpose. So let's make use of this launch. So if I wanted to use this launch in the app.js screen, first thing we had a look at is import launch from this launch screen. So now again below the app1 let's add launch. So let's try. I save Similarly, you can see element type is invalid something. It's gonna give you the same error which we have seen earlier. Element type, you likely forgot to export your component. Yes, because when we are trying to make a use of the class object from another one class to another class, so that class has to be mentioned as an export, which is nothing but an access for the public. Export keyword is that makes you allow you to use this particular class object into somewhere else in any other classes. Similar equivalence to the public accessories in the other technologies. So if you see, let me save and reload the things. Yes, still we have seen the same error because it is mentioned in export, but here we have imported the whole thing. So that is where system is unable to identify. To make a default execution of the particular class in your file, again we should mention default. So now what I'm gonna do is, anyhow we already had a look at our default keyword here. Now I'm going to import the particular piece of a launch class from this particular launch file. So now let's save and then try. You see hello world from the launch, because this style is get overrated because we already have a flex1, and in the app.js also we have a flex1. So all the flexes got overrated. Now I just removed the style. You can see the text which is coming from the previous class. So this is how actually the use of the export and defaults. So when we are trying to have a multiple classes to make use of the particular thing, we should mention that particular class name within the braces, so that that going to import the only that piece of a executable component from that class. So I think let's have a one more thing. Anyhow, we can see in current days, like, functional components are getting popular instead of this class component. Yes, there is a differences between these function and components, function and class components. Both has their individual usages. So that we're gonna cover in the later videos, like what is the difference between these two and which one is better one based on the needs. So let's look at the same method, same thing, using the functions as well. So which is constant, maybe launch function. So this is the basic syntax to create a function. So within the function, if you wanted to have a something to display a component, then that thing has to be added in the return text. So a function which has the return is getting used for to display some content, which is like XML tags, and a function without return commands that can be make use of for the business logics. So similar fashion, if I wanted to make a use of the same function components here, simply I can able to use in this way, from launch function. Let's save and then see this one is imported from below. And same again, if I wanted to make a use of this thing from the another class, instead of here we should add export keyword, and launch function should be imported here, so that it does the both class and function does the same thing. There is no differences between these two, and but logically there is some usage wise there is some difference between class and function things. So nowadays, like, hooks concept is introduced to works like similar to the class functions, class components. In the later videos we're going to have a detailed discussion about the class functions as well. So let's see, this is the way to create a functions and classes, and making use of the other classes and making use of some other things. So similarly, we also have the next concept of properties. how can we make a use of the properties? How can we these properties plays a important role in the React Native application. So generally when we use these Redux concepts, these properties will play a major role because the entire state object will be coming to the properties in the individual classes. So that we're going to have a detailed discussion while we are discussing in the Redux concepts. Now in general, properties in the sense simply a properties of the particular any of the component, or we can say API. So for example, so when we go for this official document, so this property is nothing but, let me search. So we can see here style properties, shadow properties, image properties. Props is nothing but a properties. Anything that existing to particular API component, we can mention it as a properties. Or we can able to maintain, or we can able to create our custom properties for this particular classes or the components. So let's look at the creating a custom properties for the particular any of the component. So let's say if I wanted to create property for this particular a class which is available within the class, within the file, so simply name equals to, I'm just passing this hello world from API1. Instead of a static text, I'm just passing the same text with the property name. I just created, this is the property of app1 class. So to make a use of this property which is created here, simply instead of the static text, this dot pops. This dot pops in the sense this is gonna get all the properties of this particular class which is app1, and simply mention the property name which I created here. So or maybe it may be text or whatever it is, sample text. So while using, you should mention the same name whatever it is just created here. So let's save and then try. So if you see hello world from app1 which is passed from here, or maybe app props. See, text is updated. It means this is the simplest way of creating the custom property for this particular class. So this will be useful in the later stage, like while you are implementing your custom components, like your individual components like loading indicators, or if you wanted to create a properties of completed loading, or if you wanted to build your own API manager, something like if you wanted to write your custom classes or custom components, there you gonna these properties will help you a lot of help you a lot. So similar way, if you wanted to create properties for which is defined in another file which is like launch, if you wanted to pass the same text here also, you can simply create a text here which is text, and simply this way, and let me make a use of this property which is defined here, which is this dot props dot text. That's it. Let's save and then verify. So if you see hello world from launch which is passed from here, hello world test props, let's see. Yeah, you can see property is created and text is getting passed from one class to another class. Similar way for the function as well, but for the function it has a slight change. This is test functional props. For the class we haven't mentioned anything, simply we can just make use of this dot properties which will give us the properties of this particular class. But for the functions we should mention here props. Here the usage will be props object which is defined here no, while we are binding the dynamic text, we should make sure that should be binded within the braces. Props here, simply props dot, which is the object of this one, and text, which is defined here. Simply save and then see. You can see test props. So this is the simplest way of like creating the multiple classes or functions, making use of these exports and the defaults, and creating the properties for these particular classes, and passing the values from one class to another classes, and making use of some other classes to the one class. So but maybe you can have some question, while I am creating some other classes and making use of the different class, but still it is getting visible in a single class. Yes, because until unless we integrated a routing and mentioning as a like integrating the navigation controllers and all this stuff, all the classes will get be visible in a one particular class. So all the classes, all the files will be considered as a single screen. So to make a individual screens and individual file as an individual rendering component, we should be integrate routing concept, routings and navigations. Then only each and individual file will be considered as a single screen. So I think that's all for this video. In the next video we can have a look at another important concept, which is like a states concept. How can we use the state concept in the file, in the project? So I think this will give you more clarity on the creation of the classes and the properties. If you have any questions or if you need any clarifications, just mention in the comments so that I can respond and will give you more information if required. So thank you guys. See you in the next video.